the early 1980s, pickups were transitioning to the mainstream, following vans and leading the way for SUVs. GM would be the first American company to make their own compact pickup with the Chevrolet S10 and GMC S15 for 1982. Prices started between $6,700 and $7,600. Wheelbases initially ranged from 108 to 118, with a longer 123-inch wheelbase extended cab arriving for its second year. A regular cab long bed was 197 inches long, and the base engine was an 82 horsepower 1.9-liter Isuzu four-cylinder, with an optional 110 horsepower 2.8-liter V6. It was soon followed by the Ford Ranger, costing $6,700 to $9,400, 176 to 193 inches long, on a 108 to 125-inch wheelbase, and around 2,500 pounds in base form. Engines included a 2 or 2.3-liter 4 with 74 to 80 horsepower, a 2.8-liter V6 with 115 horsepower, or a Mazda 2.2-liter diesel with 59 horsepower. Dodge introduced a very different front-wheel drive Rampage in 1982, starting between $7,000 and $7,500. It was 184 inches long on a 104-inch wheelbase and only weighed 2,300 pounds, with power coming from an 84 horsepower 2.2-liter 4. Just over 35,000 were made over its 3-year run. The Jeep Scrambler, or CJ8, was between $9,000 and $10,000 to start, and 173 inches long on a 104-inch wheelbase, and typically between 2,700 and 3,000 pounds. Base engine was a 2.5-liter Iron Duke for 82 horsepower, with an optional 4.2-liter straight six providing 115 horsepower. Just over 25,000 were made over 5 years. Chevrolet's El Camino and GMC's Caballero had been downsized and came into the 80s little changed. Prices started just over $5,900 in 1980, and they were 202 inches long on a 117-inch wheelbase, and typically weighed from 3,500 to 3,800 pounds. Base engine for the year was a 3.8-liter 229 V6 with 115 horsepower, with either an 125 horsepower 4.4-liter 267 or an 155 horsepower 5-liter 305 optional. 41,000 sold for the year. The Ford F-Series had just become the best-selling truck on the market, a title it hasn't let go of since. In 1980, an F-150 started just under $5,800 and came in wheelbases from 117 to 168 inches, with lengths from 209 to 249, weighing 3,700 to over 4,800 pounds. Engines for the year included an 120 horsepower 4.9-liter 300 cubic inch straight six, an 133 horsepower 5-liter 302, 136 horsepower 5.8-liter 351, and 153 horsepower 6.6-liter 400 V8. Although other markets had a variety of different engines. U.S. sales of the F-150 alone were nearly 175,000. The Dodge D-Series Ram got a facelift for 1981 when prices ranged from $6,000 to $10,000. Regular cab versions were 190 to 210 inches long on a 115 to 131-inch wheelbase, with the crew cab long bed reaching over 165-inch wheelbase. Base engine was a 3.7-liter 225 slant 6 with 95 horsepower, with optional 140 horsepower 5.2-liter 318 or 175 horsepower 5.9-liter 360 V8. The Chevrolet GMC CK trucks also got a facelift for 1981, with prices from $7,000 to $10,000. Lengths ranged from 192 to 246 inches on 118 to 164-inch wheelbases. Base engine was a 105 horsepower 4.1-liter 250 straight six, with an optional 4.8-liter 292 straight six, producing 120 horsepower. V8s came in 5-liter 305 with 130 to 155 horsepower, 5.7-liter 350 with 160 to 175 horsepower, and 7.4-liter 454 with 230 horsepower, or an Oldsmobile 5.7-liter 350 diesel with 120 horsepower. The Jeep J Series of 1981 was priced from $8,600 to $11,000, with wheelbases of 120 to 165. Base engine was the 115 horsepower 4.2-liter straight six, but most had a 5.9-liter 360 providing 175 horsepower, and a commercial version was offered with a more Jeep-like front as the CJ10. Many consider the AMC Eagle to be the first crossover SUV, but at the time it was simply considered a four-wheel drive car with extra ground clearance. In 1980, it started from $7,000 to $7,500 for a four-door station wagon, which was 186 inches long and 109-inch wheelbase, and 3,400 pounds, initially using the 4.2-liter straight six with 110 horsepower. But it was also available as a coupe, sedan, and hatchback. The Jeep CJ came in 84-inch wheelbase CJ5 or 93-inch wheelbase CJ7 for lengths of 138 or 148 inches and weighing up to 2,700 pounds. Prices were typically between $7,600 and $8,600. And in addition to the 2.5-liter Iron Duke and 4.2-liter straight six, the CJ7 could have a 5-liter 304 V8 for 125 horsepower. The Ford Bronco was based on the F-150, but was only 180 inches long on a 104-inch wheelbase and weighed 4,300 pounds. Engines were mostly the same, but it didn't come with the 6.6-liter 400. It started at $7,900, and nearly $45,000 were sold for the year. The Chevrolet Blazer and GMC Jimmy started from $8,000 to $11,000 and were 185 inches long on a 107-inch wheelbase, while the Suburban was about $1,000 more and was 216 inches long on a 127-inch wheelbase. Engines were the same as the pickup, with the exception of the 7.4-liter 454. The Dodge Ramcharger and identical Plymouth Trail Duster of 1981 started from $8,700 to $10,000. They were 185 inches long on a 106-inch wheelbase and around 4,000 pounds, powered by the 140 horsepower 5.2-liter 318 or 175 horsepower 5.9-liter 360. The two-door Jeep Cherokee and four-door Jeep Wagoneer were priced from $10,000 to $16,000 in 1982, with sales around $25,000. They were 186 inches long on a 110-inch wheelbase and 4,500 pounds, and powered by a 4.2-liter straight six or 5.9-liter 360 with 110 to 175 horsepower. While the Econoline van was also on the same platform as the F-Series pickup and shared its engines. Starting at just over $6,100, it was offered in 124 to 138-inch wheelbase versions, making it 187 to 227 inches long. Passenger versions of the Dodge B-Series Ram van and Plymouth Voyager started around $6,700, but stripped-down commercial versions could be had for less than $4,000. Offered on 110 to 127-inch wheelbases in lengths from 179 to 223 inches, and sharing drivetrains with the other Ram trucks, while the Chevy van and GMC Vandura were priced from $7,000 to $9,200 in 178, 202, and 223-inch lengths on 110, 125, and 146-inch wheelbases, and like the others, shared its powertrains with the other GM trucks. In Britain, the Land Rover Series 3 continued through 1985, offered as a pickup or two- or four-door wagon, 142 to 175 inches long on an 88 or 109-inch wheelbase, with most using either a gas or diesel version of the 2.25-liter inline four with 73 or 62 horsepower, although a bigger 86 horsepower 2.6-liter straight six or the Rover 3.5-liter V8 detuned to 91 horsepower could be added. The original Range Rover entered its second decade with lowered ride height to reduce rollovers, but it remained 175 inches long on a 100-inch wheelbase, using the 135 horsepower version of the 3.5-liter V8. Bedford offered a number of cab-over trucks, including the light-duty CF1 of 1980, offered in 106 to 140-inch wheelbase and powered by a 2 or 2.3-liter diesel with 59 or 61 horsepower, or a 1.8 or 2.3-liter petrol slant 4 with 60 to 75 horsepower. The Commer FC Space Van continued through 1983. It was 170 inches long on a 90-inch wheelbase and 2,700 to 3,300 pounds, Power came from a 1.7-liter 4 with 50 to 58 horsepower, or a 1.8-liter diesel with 42 horsepower. But the van of choice remained the Ford Transit Mark II, offered as a 179-inch long, 106-inch wheelbase version, or a long 118-inch wheelbase version. In France, pickups remained car-based, such as the Talbot 1100, which was available as a pickup or van, typically 157 inches long on a 99-inch wheelbase and 2,000 pounds, using the 1.1-liter with 54 horsepower. But there was also a rare Matra Rancho SUV that was 170 inches long and 2,500 pounds, using a bigger 1.5-liter with 80 horsepower. Peugeot also offered a pickup van version of the 504 at the time, 189 inches long and 114-inch wheelbase. And engine choices were a 62 horsepower 1.6-liter petrol engine or a 48 horsepower 2-liter diesel 4. The Renault Master was introduced in 1980, offered in 110, 126, and 145-inch wheelbases, with length ranging from 185 to 220 inches, initially using a 2.4-liter diesel providing 70 horsepower. The Swiss Monteverde Safari was essentially just an Italian-bodied continuation of the International Scout, 178 inches long on a 100-inch wheelbase, and just under 4,700 pounds. Engines included the International 5.7-liter 345, rated at 161 horsepower, or a Chrysler 5.2-liter 318, or 7.2-liter 440, with 150 or 301 horsepower. From Germany, Volkswagen offered the Golf-based Caddy, which sold in the U.S. as the Rabbit pickup. It was 172 inches long on a 103-inch wheelbase, and 2,200 to 2,400 pounds, initially with a 1.6-liter with up to 109 horsepower. The recently introduced Mercedes-Benz Geländewagen was offered as a 95-inch wheelbase 2-door or 112-inch wheelbase 4-door, initially offered in 230, 280, and 320 petrol versions, or as a 300 diesel, with horsepower ranging from 87 to 221. The third-generation Volkswagen Transporter, or Vanagon when it came to the U.S., was also called the Combi, Caravelle, and other things. It was 180 inches long on a 97-inch wheelbase, weighing 3,100 pounds, initially using a 1.9-liter air-cooled Boxer 4, providing 94 horsepower. In Italy, Fiat was offering a number of vans, including the small Fiorino, which would be sold as a pickup in South America, typically 151 inches long on the 87-inch wheelbase, and engines could be had in 900, 1,000, or 1,300 cc's. There was also the full-size Fiat Ducato on 115 to 144-inch wheelbases and 185 to 220 inches long, using either a 2-liter petrol or 1.9-liter diesel 4. Also in contention as the first crossover SUV was the Lada Niva from the USSR. The tiny hatchback version was 147 inches long on an 87-inch wheelbase and was powered by a 75 horsepower 1.6-liter. Australia was still the land of the utility coupe, with cars like the Holden Statesman-based ute, typically 195 inches long on a 114-inch wheelbase, and powered by an 89 horsepower 3.3-liter 202 straight-six, or 117 horsepower 4.2-liter 253, or 153 horsepower 5-liter 308 V8. And the new Ford Falcon Ute, which was 196 inches long on a 116-inch wheelbase, and around 3,000 pounds, offered with a 3.3-liter 200, or 4.1-liter 250 straight-six, or with a 4.9-liter 302, or 5.8-liter 351 V8 with 110 to 200 horsepower. From Japan, there was a new Subaru Brat for 1982, priced from $6,300 to $6,700. It was 157 inches long on a 97-inch wheelbase and 1,700 pounds, powered by a 1.8-liter flat 4 with 73 horsepower. The Isuzu Pup was new for 1980, also sold as the Chevrolet Love, starting at $4,600. They were 174 to 191 inches long on 104 to 118-inch wheelbases and 2,400 to 3,200 pounds. Initially powered by an 80 horsepower 1.6-liter gas engine or 58 horsepower 2.2-liter diesel. The third generation Mazda B series was also the Ford Courier and was made through 1985. Prices range from $6,200 to $7,200, typically 189 inches long on a 113-inch wheelbase. Most used a 75 horsepower 2-liter as the B2000, but the Courier could have a Pinto 88 horsepower 2.3-liter. Toyota's Hilux ran from $6,100 to $9,000, was 169 to 186 inches long on a 102 to 110-inch wheelbase, and weighed 2,600 to 2,900 pounds. Engines included a 1.6, 1.8, 2, 2.2, and 2.4 liter, including a 2.2-liter diesel, with horsepower ranging from 62 to 97. The Datsun 720 of 1980 started at $6,000, using 101 to 111-inch wheelbases for lengths of 186 to 193 inches. Depending on the market, it could have a 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, or 2-liter with 79 to 98 horsepower. Mitsubishi's L200 was later called the Mighty Max, selling in the U.S. as the Dodge D50, starting at $4,800, offered in 110 to 120-inch wheelbases, with lengths ranging from 185 to 204. Engines came in 1.6, 2, 2.6, or as a 2.3-liter diesel, with 65 to 105 horsepower. There were a variety of SUVs, such as the tiny Suzuki Jimny J30 of 1981. It was 126 inches long on an 80-inch wheelbase, with a 33 horsepower 550cc inline 3. Mitsubishi introduced the Montero in 1982 as a replacement for their version of the 30-year-old Jeep, initially as a 157-inch long two-door on a 93-inch wheelbase, with a 2-liter gas or 2.3-liter diesel engine with 65 to 92 horsepower, soon to be joined by a bigger, more powerful 4-door version that would replace the traditional Jeep wagon. The Isuzu Trooper was also introduced in 1982 and cost $8,700 when it arrived in the U.S. a few years later, with 2- and 4-door versions being 160 to 172 inches long on a 91 or 104-inch wheelbase, using a 2 or 2.3-liter gas engine for 72 to 96 horsepower, or a 2.2-liter diesel. The Daihatsu Taft F20 was only 131 inches long on an 80-inch wheelbase and 2,200 pounds, and had recently upgraded to a 1,500cc inline 4 with 104 horsepower. Toyota's Land Cruiser J60 of 1980 was 184 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase and powered by an 135 horsepower 4.2-liter straight 6. It would cost $12,000 when it came to the U.S. a year later. The third generation Nissan Patrol was 160 to 185 inches long on a 93 or 117-inch wheelbase, with engines including the 2.8 or 4-liter gas or 3.3-liter diesel, providing 95 to 145 horsepower. There were also numerous cabovers, such as the Daihatsu Hi-Jet, which was 126 to 133 inches long on a 71 or 72-inch wheelbase, and could be as low as 800 pounds, using a 547cc twin with 28 horsepower, or the Honda Acti, 126 inches long on a 73-inch wheelbase, and up to 1,300 pounds, using an overhead cam 545cc two-cylinder, also with 28 horsepower. The Suzuki Carry of 1980 was typically 126 inches long on a 72-inch wheelbase, using a 28 horsepower 543cc inline 3, but there were variations for some markets. Mitsubishi's Mini Cab for 1981 was 118 to 126 inches long on a 69-inch wheelbase, with a 546 or 644cc twin with 21 to 29 horsepower. And the Subaru Sambar was 126 inches long on a 92-inch wheelbase, with a 33 horsepower 544cc twin. The new Isuzu Fargo for 1980 was 171 to 185 inches long on a 93 to 106-inch wheelbase, initially with a 1.6 or 1.8-liter gas or 1.8 or 2-liter diesel engine for 51 to 75 horsepower. Nissan's Vanette was 154 to 168 inches long on an 82 to 95-inch wheelbase, weighing 1,900 to 2,300 pounds. offered with a 1.2 or 1.5 liter gas engine or 2-liter diesel, with horsepower ranging from 64 to 82. Toyota had several variations, including the Light Ace, that was around 154 inches long on an 82-inch wheelbase and 2,000 to 2,500 pounds, powered by a 1.3 or 1.8 liter with 68 to 91 horsepower. But they also offered the Town Ace and High Ace for those that wanted more. Mazda had the Bongo van, 148 inches long on a 79-inch wheelbase and 1,700 to 2,000 pounds. Power came from a 1.4, 1.6, or 1.8 liter gas or 2.2 liter diesel engine, providing 66 to 94 horsepower. And soon, the minivan craze would hit the US, shifting the market yet again. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.